The morning sun peeked through the curtains as Maya stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, adjusting her navy blue school uniform for the third time. Her fingers trembled slightly as she smoothed down her long black hair, trying to make it look exactly like it did yesterday and the day before that. Any small change could draw attention, and attention was the last thing she wanted. Next door, in the other bathroom, she could hear her twin sister Raya getting ready too. The sound of pop music and cheerful humming drifted through the wall. Maya smiled softly, wondering how two people who looked so alike could be so different. While Maya preferred to blend into the background with her books and quiet thoughts, Raya was like a bright spark that lit up every room she entered. "You girls better hurry up," their mom called from downstairs. The smell of fresh toast and coffee filled the house. Their mom ran a small bakery in town, and the habit of waking up early to bake had never left her. Maya grabbed her backpack, heavy with textbooks and notebooks filled with neat handwriting. As she walked down the stairs, she could already picture how her day would go. First period chemistry with Mr. Kumar, where she'd sit in the back corner, hoping Priya and her friends wouldn't notice her. But they always did. "Maya, eat properly," her mom said, pushing a plate of toast and eggs towards her. "You barely touched your dinner last night." "I'm not very hungry," Maya mumbled, but took a small bite anyway. Across the table, Raya was scrolling through her phone while somehow managing to eat her breakfast at the same time. "I still don't understand why you two go to different schools," their mum sighed, a conversation they'd had countless times. The decision had been made 3 years ago when they started high school. Their parents thought it would help them develop their own identities. For Ria, it worked perfectly. She was thriving at River Valley High, captain of the debate team and surrounded by friends. But for Maya, things at Pine Grove High weren't so great. Sure, she had perfect grades and teachers loved her, but that only made things worse with Priya and her group. They called her teacher's pet and ghost girl because she was so quiet. Just yesterday, they'd knocked a lunch tray over accidentally, making the whole cafeteria laugh. Maya checked her watch, 7:45 a.m. Her stomach tightened. In exactly 30 minutes, she'd be walking through the school gates, keeping her eyes down, hoping today would be different. But it never was. "Want a ride?" Raya offered, jingling their dad's old car keys. Their parents had agreed to let them share the car since their schools were in opposite directions. Maya shook her head. "I'll take the bus." The bus was safer. At least there, Priya and her friends couldn't bother her. They'd all got dropped off in fancy cars by their parents. As Maya waited at the bus stop, she pulled out her worn copy of Pride and Prejudice. Books were her escape. Between those pages, she could be brave like Elizabeth Bennet, standing up to anyone who looked down on her. In real life, though, the words always got stuck in her throat. The bus arrived with a screech of brakes. Maya took her usual seat near the front, next to the window. As the familiar streets passed by, she thought about Rhea, probably driving to school with the music blasting, not afraid of anything or anyone. Sometimes Maya wondered what it would be like to be that confident, to walk into a room and not worry about every little thing. The bus turned the corner, and Pine Grove High came into view. Maya's heart started beating faster. Through the window, she could see Prida and her friends gathered at their usual spot near the entrance, laughing about something on someone's phone. Maya took a deep breath and clutched her backpack tighter. Just another day. Just had to make it through just another day. If only she knew how different things were about to become. The science fair project sat in ruins on Maya's desk, 3 months of careful research and late nights destroyed in seconds. Her hands shook as she picked up pieces of her model showing the effects of pollution on local pond ecosystems. The little handmade fish she'd carefully painted were crushed, leaving smears of blue and green on the white poster board. It happened just before final judging. Maya had stepped away to get water, and when she returned, she found her project accidentally knocked over. Priya and her friends stood nearby, covering their mouths to hide their smirks. "Oh no," Priya had said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Someone must have bumped into it. Such a shame." The teacher offered to let Maya present the next day, but she knew it wouldn't matter. She couldn't recreate 3 months of work overnight. So she gathered what remained of her project, ignored the whispers and giggles, and somehow made it through the rest of the day without crying. But now, alone in her room, the tears wouldn't stop. Maya sat on her bed, hugging her knees to her chest, her science fair participation certificate crumpled beside her. The setting sun cast long shadows across her floor, and she could hear her mom downstairs, humming while preparing dinner, completely unaware of what had happened. A soft knock on her door made Maya quickly wipe her eyes. "Not hungry, Mom," she called out, her voice crackling. "It's me." Raya's voice came through the door. "Can I come in?" Maya didn't answer, but Raya came in anyway. That was just how Raya was. She took one look at the destroyed project, then at Maya's tear-stained face, and her usual cheerful expression turned serious. "Okay, spill it," Raya said, sitting cross-legged on Maya's bed. "And don't tell me you're fine, because I can literally feel that you're not." Twin telepathy, remember? Maybe it was the gentle tone in Ria's voice, or maybe Maya had just reached her limit, but suddenly everything came pouring out. The daily torments, the whispered insults, the accidental shoulder bumps in the hallway, and now the ruined science project. As she talked, Ria's expression grew darker and darker. "Why didn't you tell me before?" Raya asked, her hands clenched into fists. "I would have." "Would have what?" Maya wiped fresh tears away. "It's not like you could do anything. You're at a different school." Raya went quiet for a moment, twirling a strand of her hair, a habit she had when she was thinking hard about something. Then suddenly, her eyes lit up with that spark that usually meant either a brilliant idea or major trouble was coming. "Actually," she said slowly, "I think I can do something. We're identical twins, Maya, like really identical. Remember when we were kids and used to switch places all the time? Even Mom and Dad couldn't tell us apart." Maya looked up, sniffling. "That was years ago. And anyway, what's your point?" "My point is," Raya leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper even though their parents were downstairs, "what if we did it again? What if I went to your school for a week, pretending to be you?" "That's crazy," Maya said, but her heart started beating faster. "We're not kids anymore. We can't just." "Why not?" Ria's eyes were sparkling now. "Think about it. I know how to handle bullies. Remember that girl who tried to pick on me in middle school? By the time I was done, she was practically begging to be my friend. And you could go to my school for a week. My friends are super nice and nobody would bother you. But what about teachers? Assignments? We can't just. We've got the weekend to prepare. You can tell me everything about your teachers, your classes, and especially about this prior person." Ria's voice hardened slightly at the name. "And I'll catch you up on my schedule. It's just 1 week, Maya. 1 week to show these bullies that they messed with the wrong person." Maya looked at her ruined science project, then back at her sister's determined face. A small voice in her head whispered that this was a terrible idea, that so many things could go wrong. But another voice, one that sounded stronger and braver, liked the idea of Priya finally getting a taste of her own medicine. "Mom and Dad would kill us if they found out," Maya said, but Raya could hear the wavering in her voice. "Then they won't find out." Raya grabbed Maya's hands. "Come on, sis, let me do this for you. Let me be your knight in shining armor, or well, in your school uniform." For the first time that day, Maya felt a smile tugging at her lips. "You're crazy, you know that?" "Crazy smart," Rhea grinned. "So, are we doing this?" Maya looked at her twin sister, her mirror image in appearance, but so different in spirit, and slowly nodded. "We're doing this." "Perfect." Raya jumped up, already buzzing with energy. "Operation Switcheroo begins now. First thing, we need to write down everything about your daily routine. And I mean everything." As they spent the next few hours planning, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. Saturday morning turned their bedroom into a secret command center. Notebooks were spread across the floor, filled with hastily scribbled notes. Maya sat cross-legged on her bed, watching as Rhea practiced walking with Maya's characteristic slight shoulder hunch. No, Maya shook her head. "You're still walking too confidently. I kind of shuffle more." Raya straightened up, frowning. "You know, it hurts my heart that you've learned to make yourself smaller like this." She tried again, this time nailing Maya's hesitant walk perfectly. "How's that?" "Better," Maya nodded, then glanced at their bedroom door. Downstairs, they could hear their parents watching TV. "Are you sure we can pull this off?" Absolutely, Raya said, picking up one of the notebooks. Okay, quiz me again about your teachers. Maya picked up her class schedule. First period. Chemistry with Mr. Kumar. He always wears the same 3 ties and loves making bad science puns. Sits me in the back row, 3rd seat from the window. Second period. Literature with Mrs. Mehta. Currently studying Pride and Prejudice, which works perfectly because I've actually read it. Thanks to someone who wouldn't stop talking about it last summer. Raya winked at her sister. They spent the next hour going through every detail of Maya's daily routine, which stairs to avoid because Praya's group hung out there, which bathroom was safest to use between classes, even the cafeteria politics, which tables were off limits and which could provide relative safety. And remember, Maya said for the 10th time, Praya isn't actually the scariest one. It's Tara, Raya finished. Her second-in-command who does all the dirty work while Praya keeps her hands clean. Got it. Trust me, I know the type. Maya watched as Rhea practiced her signature, trying to copy the slightly slanted way Maya wrote her name. It was strange seeing someone else, even her twin, preparing to step into her life. Like watching an actress rehearse to play her in a movie. Now your turn, Rhea said, tossing Maya her phone. You need to learn about my friends. Maya scrolled through the photos, trying to memorize faces and names. Okay, so Delia is the one with the red highlights, and she's in most of your classes. And she's super sweet but talks really fast when she's excited. Don't worry if you miss half of what she says, I do too sometimes. Raya grinned. Oh, and very important, she's allergic to peanuts, so always check before sharing snacks. The preparation continued through Sunday. They'd practiced each other's laughs, the way they held their pens, even their different methods of tucking hair behind their ears. Maya taught Raya her class materials, while Rhea coached Maya on handling her debate team responsibilities. What if someone asks me to speak in debate club? Maya asked nervously. I've already told the team I'm working on a special presentation for next week's meeting. You just have to take notes and nod thoughtfully. Rhea demonstrated the nod, making Maya laugh. As Sunday evening approached, they went through their final checklist. They'd swapped phones, memorized each other's passwords, and even exchanged a few small personal items, Maya's favorite pencil case, Rhea's Lucky Charm bracelet, to help them stay in character. One last thing, Raya said, pulling out her makeup bag. We need to practice covering up your birthmark. Maya touched the tiny heart-shaped mark behind her right ear, the only physical difference between them. She sat patiently as Rhea demonstrated how to apply concealer just right, making the mark disappear completely. Then Mom's voice floated up from downstairs. Girls, dinner time. They looked at each other, both nervous and excited. Tomorrow morning, they'd put their plan into action. Maya would drive Rhea's car to River Valley High, while Raya would take the bus to Pine Grove, just like Maya always did. Are you scared? Maya asked softly. Nah, Raya replied, but then paused. Well, maybe a little. Not about the bullies, I can handle them. I'm more worried about letting you down. Maya hugged her sister tightly. You could never let me down. You're literally becoming me to help me. That's what sisters are for, Raya hugged back. Especially twin sisters. As they headed downstairs for dinner, trying to act normal as their parents chatted about their day, Maya felt butterflies in her stomach. Tomorrow would change everything. She just wasn't sure if it would be for better or worse. Later that night, as they lay in their beds in the dark, Rhea whispered, Hey Maya. Yeah? Promise me something. When this is all over, we'll work on helping you find your own kind of confidence. Not my way, but your way. Maya stared at the ceiling, thinking about her sister's words. I promise. Good, now get some sleep. Tomorrow, Operation Switcheroo goes live. Maya closed her eyes, listening to the familiar sound of her sister's breathing. Tomorrow, for the first time since starting high school, she wouldn't have to face those hallways and those mean girls. Tomorrow, Priya and her friends would meet a very different kind of Maya. They just didn't know it yet. Monday morning arrived with a mix of fog and nervous energy. Roya sat on the bus wearing Maya's uniform, carrying Maya's backpack, trying to remember to hunch her shoulders just a little. But inside, her heart was racing with excitement. The bus rolled to a stop in front of Pine Grove High, and she took a deep breath. Showtime. Walking through the front gates, Rhea spotted Priya's group immediately. They were exactly where Maya had described, claiming the best bench near the entrance, like it was their personal throne. Rhea kept her eyes down, just like Maya would, but allowed herself to peek through her lashes, studying them. Priya sat in the middle, scrolling through her phone while her friends laughed at something. Beside her was Tara, whom Maya had warned was the real threat. "Hey, Coast Girl," Tara called out as Rhea passed. "Love what you did with your hair today. Did you brush it with a vacuum cleaner?" The other girls snickered. Rhea bit back, her instinct to respond with a cutting comment. Instead, she did something Maya never did. She paused for just a second, turned slightly, and looked directly into Tara's eyes. No words, no expression, just 3 seconds of steady eye contact. Then she walked away. Behind her, the laughter faltered. She could hear Priya whisper, "Did she just?" First period chemistry went exactly as planned. Rhea sat in Maya's assigned seat, took detailed notes, though she had to stop herself from raising her hand when she knew the answers. Maya had warned her that she never volunteered in class anymore and kept to herself. But during group work, when someone needed help understanding the molecular structure diagram, she explained it clearly and confidently, not in Maya's usual whisper. By lunchtime, subtle whispers were circulating. Something was different about the quiet girl. She still wasn't talking much, but there was something changed. When Priya accidentally bumped into her in the lunch line, Rhea didn't stumble back like Maya usually would. Instead, she planted her feet firmly and let Priya be the one who bounced off. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Rhea said, in a tone that was perfectly polite but didn't sound sorry at all. "You should be more careful. Wouldn't want you to get hurt." Priya's eyes widened slightly. This wasn't following the usual script. During afternoon classes, Rhea continued her subtle campaign. In math, when Tara tried to copy her worksheet, Rhea calmly turned it at an angle where she couldn't see. In English, when they were discussing Romeo and Juliet, she spoke up with an insight so clever that even Priya looked impressed for a moment before catching herself. But the real test came in PE class. They were playing volleyball, and normally Maya would find a way to stand in the back, avoiding the ball. Instead, Rhea positioned herself front and center. When Priya spiked the ball directly at her face, a move Maya had warned her about, Rhea was ready. She caught the ball one-handed inches from her nose and served it back with perfect form. The gym went quiet. Priya's face turned red. "Since when do you play volleyball?" one of Priya's friends asked suspiciously. "I've always known how," Rhea replied softly, still using Maya's quiet voice. "I just never felt like showing off before." After school, Rhea noticed something interesting. A girl named Lily, who usually hurried past Maya's locker without looking up, actually stopped to talk. "Hey, that was really cool in PE today," she said quickly, like she was afraid someone might see her talking to the class outcast. "Thanks," Rhea smiled, remembering Maya mentioning that Lily used to be nice to her before Priya's group declared Maya socially radioactive. "Would you maybe want to study together sometime? I heard you're really good at biology." Lily glanced nervously at Priya's empty usual spot, then straightened her shoulders. "Yeah, actually, that would be nice." On the bus ride home, Rhea mentally reviewed her day. She'd stuck to the plan. No direct confrontations, no obvious changes, just small moments of standing up for herself. But she could already see the cracks forming in Priya's power structure. The whispers had changed from mocking to curious. People who usually avoided eye contact with Maya were starting to look interested. Her phone buzzed. Maya's phone, actually. It was a text from her sister. How did it go? Rhea smiled as she typed back. "Let's just say things are getting interesting. How was your day pretending to be me? Your friends are so nice. But I almost died when your debate team mentor asked me about next week's topic. Thank goodness you warned me to say I was still researching." "Just wait," Rhea texted back. "By the end of this week, you'll have a whole new life to go back to. Trust your sister." As the bus turned onto their street, Rhea felt satisfied with day one of their plan. She hadn't done anything dramatic or obvious. That would come later. For now, she'd planted the seeds of change. Priya and her friends were used to dealing with a Maya who would bend and break. They weren't ready for a Maya who would bend but snap back stronger. Tomorrow would bring phase 2 of the plan. Rhea smiled to herself, remembering the look on Priya's face when she caught that volleyball. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't about getting even, it was about showing your bullies that they never really knew you at all. By Wednesday, the shift in Pine Grove High's social dynamics was becoming obvious. Rhea, still playing the role of her twin sister, arrived at school to find Lily waiting by Maya's locker. Two other girls from their chemistry class, who had never spoken to Maya before, stood nearby. "We're starting a study group for midterms," Lily explained, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Would you like to join? You explain things really well." Rhea smiled Maya's gentle smile, but added a touch of confidence to it. "I'd love to. Should we meet in the library after school?" Down the hall, she could see Priya watching the exchange, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her phone screen with increasing irritation. The ghost girl wasn't acting like a ghost anymore, and people were starting to notice. In math class, something unexpected happened. When the teacher handed back their pop quiz from Monday, Priya's face turned red with anger. She tried to copy Rhea's answers just like she always did with Maya. But Rhea had deliberately written some wrong answers, then corrected them at the last minute, leaving Priya with a failing grade. "Is there a problem?" the teacher asked when Priya made a small sound of outrage. "No," Priya muttered, crumpling the quiz paper. Her eyes shot daggers at Rhea, who kept her face perfectly calm, like Maya would. During lunch, Rhea put the next phase of her plan into action. She sat at her usual isolated table, but this time she pulled out a brand new book, The Art of Quiet Strength, and placed it deliberately on the table. Within minutes, a girl named May, another frequent target of Priya's group, walked past and noticed the title. "That's my favorite book," May said softly, clutching her lunch tray. "Would you like to join me?" Rhea asked, gesturing to the empty seat. "I just started it." As they talked about the book, their voices gradually grew louder, more confident. Other students who usually ate alone began drifting toward their table. By the end of lunch period, 6 people sat together, laughing about a funny story Mai had shared about her little brother. Priya's table, usually the center of attention, seemed strangely quiet. In PE class, Rhea continued her strategy. When teams were being chosen for basketball, she didn't wait to be picked last like Maya usually did. Instead, she stepped forward and volunteered to be a team captain. The coach, surprised but pleased, agreed. "Lily," Rhea called out first, ignoring the whispers of surprise. Then, May. One by one, she chose the kids who usually got picked last. When it was time to play, she made sure everyone got a chance to score, setting up perfect passes and cheering loudly for each point. Their team lost the game, but everyone was smiling. Meanwhile, Priya's team had won, but half her players looked miserable after being yelled at for every mistake. After school, the study group in the library grew larger than expected. Rhea helped explain chemical equations and mathematical formulas, just like Maya would, but she also shared study tips and memory tricks. When Tara walked past their table, trying to intimidate them with her presence, no one flinched or left. That evening, as Rhea walked to her car, Maya had taken the bus home from River Valley High. She overheard 2 teachers talking. "Have you noticed the change in Maya?" one asked. "It's like she's finally coming out of her shell." "Sometimes all it takes is finding your voice," the other replied. At home, the twins compared notes about their day. Maya was thriving at River Valley High, surrounded by Rhea's supportive friends. But she looked worried when Rhea described the changes happening at Pine Grove. "Aren't you worried Priya will do something really mean to get back at me?" Maya asked. "That's exactly what I'm counting on," Rhea replied, her eyes sparkling. "Because this time, she won't be dealing with someone who's afraid of her. And I've got something special planned for tomorrow." "What are you going to do?" "Nothing bad," Rhea assured her sister. "Just giving Priya a chance to show everyone who she really is. Trust me, by Friday, things will be very different." As they got ready for bed, Rhea could see the hope beginning to bloom in Maya's eyes. The same eyes she saw in the mirror every morning, but now with a new spark of possibility. The bullies had spent so long dimming Maya's light that they never imagined it could burst back into flame. Tomorrow would be the turning point. Rhea had watched Priya carefully all week, noting her patterns, her triggers, her weaknesses. Now it was time to show everyone at Pine Grove High that sometimes the quietest people had the strongest spirits. They just needed a chance to shine. Thursday brought dark clouds and the promise of rain, perfect weather for what Roya had planned. She'd spent the week carefully building up to this moment, and now everything was in place. The literature presentation was today, and she knew Priya had been waiting for this chance to humiliate Maya in front of everyone. The morning passed in a blur of anticipation. In every class, Raya could feel Priya's eyes on her, watching, waiting. The old Maya would have been trembling with fear, but Raya sat straight-backed, calm, ready. When lunch period came, Priya made her move. She approached the table where Rhea sat with Lily, May, and several others who had joined their growing group. "Ready for your presentation?" Priya asked, her smile sweet but her eyes cold. "I heard you got the hardest scene to analyze. Such bad luck." "Thanks for your concern," Raya replied softly, channeling Maya's quiet voice but adding a hint of steel to it. "I'm actually looking forward to it." Priya's smile faltered slightly. This wasn't the nervous response she'd expected. Behind her, Tara shifted uncomfortably. The literature classroom was full when they arrived. Mrs. Mehta had arranged the chairs in a semicircle for the presentations. Today, each student would analyze a key scene from Pride and Prejudice and explain its significance to the novel's themes. Priya went first, delivering a basic analysis of the ball scene that seemed mostly copied from online study guides. A few of her friends clapped enthusiastically, but Mrs. Mehta's expression remained neutral. Then it was Maya's turn. Roya stood up, adjusted Maya's glasses, and walked to the front of the room. She could see Priya and Tara exchanging smirks. They thought they knew what was coming. They'd switched Maya's scene assignment yesterday when she wasn't looking, giving her a completely different passage to analyze with only one day's notice. But Raya had been counting on this. She prepared for both scenes. "I'll be analyzing the confrontation between Elizabeth and Lady Catherine," Rhea began, her voice clear and steady. The smirks on Priya's face transformed into confusion. This was the wrong scene, the one that was supposed to throw Maya off. "This scene is about power," Rhea continued, looking directly at Priya as she spoke. "About someone who uses their social position to intimidate others, who thinks they can control people through fear and manipulation. But it's also about finding the courage to stand up to bullies, even when they seem more powerful than you." The classroom was completely silent now. Even Mrs. Mehta had stopped taking notes, listening intently. "Elizabeth refuses to be intimidated by Lady Catherine's wealth or status. She shows that true strength isn't about having power over others, it's about having the courage to be yourself, even when others try to make you feel small." As Raya spoke, she could see recognition dawning on some faces. The parallel between the book and their own school dynamics was becoming clear. Several students glanced at Priya, who was sinking lower in her seat. The most important line comes when Elizabeth says, "You have insulted me in every possible way," and can now have nothing further to say. It's the moment she takes back her power, not by being cruel or seeking revenge, but by simply refusing to be a victim anymore. Raya's voice grew stronger with each word. "This scene teaches us that sometimes the quietest people have the most important things to say. That being kind isn't the same as being weak, and that true character shows itself not in how we treat people who can help us, but in how we treat those we think can't fight back." The room erupted in applause when she finished. Mrs. Mehta was beaming. "Excellent analysis, Maya. You've captured not just the literary significance, but the universal human truth in this scene." Priya raised her hand suddenly. "Mrs. Mehta, that wasn't the scene Maya was supposed to present. Someone must have switched her assignment." Her voice dripped with fake concern. "It's not fair to the rest of us." "Actually," Raya replied before Mrs. Mehta could speak, "I prepared both scenes. Would you like me to present the other one as well?" She pulled out a second set of notes. Priya's face turned red. Tara stared at her desk. The whispers started immediately. Did they really try to sabotage her presentation? And she prepared both scenes anyway. No wonder they've been trying to keep her quiet. Mrs. Mehta cleared her throat. "I think one excellent presentation is sufficient, Maya. Though I would be very interested in knowing how your assignment got switched." Her stern gaze swept over the classroom. After class, something unexpected happened. Tara hung back as everyone was leaving. When the room was almost empty, she approached Raya. "How did you know?" she asked quietly. "About the switch." "I didn't," Raya replied honestly. "I just decided to stop being afraid of what might happen and be prepared instead." Tara nodded slowly. "You know, Praya's been saying you've changed, but maybe you were always this strong and we just—" She trailed off, looking uncomfortable. "It's never too late to change," Raya said, thinking of her sister. "To be the person you really want to be." As Raya walked to her next class, she could feel the shift in the air. The whispers in the hallway had a different tone now. Students who had witnessed the presentation were telling others. Praya's power had always relied on people being too afraid to stand up to her. But now someone had, and not with meanness or revenge, but with quiet dignity and preparation. By the end of the day, the story had spread through the whole school. The quiet girl who turned the tables not by becoming a bully herself, but by refusing to be bullied. Who responded to attempted sabotage with grace and preparation. Who showed that true strength wasn't about making others feel small, it was about standing tall while helping others rise with you. That evening, as Ria told Maya about what happened, her sister's eyes filled with tears. "You did all that as me." "I just showed them who you really are," Ria smiled. "The rest will be up to you." Friday morning felt different. When Maya stepped off the bus, the real Maya, back in her own school, students smiled and waved at her. The nervous knot in her stomach was still there, but it was smaller now, mixed with something new, hope. Lily was waiting by her locker again, but this time she wasn't alone. Half the study group had gathered there, chatting about the upcoming math test. They made space for Maya naturally, including her in their conversation as if she always been part of their circle. "We missed you at lunch yesterday," May said. "But your presentation in literature class was amazing. Everyone's talking about it." Maya felt her cheeks warm, remembering everything Raya had told her about yesterday's events. "Thanks," she said softly, but she didn't look down or try to hide. Instead, she remembered what her sister had taught her during their week apart. Being quiet didn't mean being invisible. The morning classes passed without any sign of Praya or her usual group. Maya later learned they were all in the principal's office discussing the switched presentation assignment. Mrs. Mehta had apparently decided it was time to address the pattern of bullying in her class. During lunch, Maya sat at what was no longer the lonely table. Lily, May, and several others joined her, sharing snacks and talking about their plans for the weekend. The conversation flowed naturally, and Maya found herself speaking up more than usual, sharing her thoughts about books and movies. "You know," Lily said during a pause in the conversation, "I always wanted to talk to you more, but I was worried about, well, you know." Maya nodded. "I understand. I was scared too." "But you're not anymore?" May asked. Maya thought about it. The fear wasn't gone completely. She didn't think it ever would be, and maybe that was okay. But it wasn't controlling her anymore. "I just realized I don't have to be afraid of being myself." In afternoon PE class, they were playing basketball again. Maya wasn't as athletic as Ria, but when it was time to choose teams, she stepped forward just like her sister had taught her. She might not make as many baskets, but she could still encourage others and help her team in her own way. The biggest surprise came after school. Maya was packing up her books when Praya approached her locker. Alone, no group of followers, no Tara backing her up. For a moment, they just looked at each other, and Maya realized something. Praya seemed smaller somehow, less intimidating. "I got 3 days of detention," Praya said finally. "And my parents are making me see the school counselor twice a week." Maya waited, her heart beating fast but her voice steady when she spoke. "I'm sorry you got in trouble, but I'm not sorry for standing up for myself." Praya nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that. What you said in your presentation about power and strength, it made me think. She struggled with the words. "I haven't been a very good person." "We all have the chance to change," Maya said, remembering what Raya had told Tara. "It's never too late." "Maybe," Praya said quietly. "Maybe we could start over. Not as friends or anything, just not as enemies." Maya thought about how much had changed in just 1 week. "I'd like that." As she walked to the bus stop, Maya pulled out her phone to text Ria. "You'll never believe what just happened." When she got home, she found Rhea waiting in their room, eager to hear everything. The twins spent hours talking about their week apart, the challenges, the victories, the moments of growth. Maya shared how much she'd learned from Rhea's friends at River Valley High, while Rhea admitted that pretending to be Maya had taught her the value of quiet strength. "You know what's funny?" Rhea said as they lay on Maya's bed, sharing a bag of chips. "I thought I was helping you by being strong for you. But you were already strong, you just needed to remember it." Maya smiled. "And you helped me do that. Not by fighting my battles, but by showing me how to fight them myself." Their mom called them down for dinner, and as they headed downstairs, Maya caught her reflection in the mirror. She looked the same as she had a week ago, same long black hair, same glasses, same quiet smile. But something was different. The girl in the reflection stood straighter, looked ahead instead of down, carried herself with a new kind of confidence. The next Monday, Maya walked into school alone but not lonely. She had real friends now, not because she had changed who she was, but because she had finally let people see her true self. The bullies had lost their power, not through a big showdown or public humiliation, but through something much simpler: the quiet courage of being authentically yourself. In the end, she realized Rhea hadn't just helped her get back at her bullies. She'd helped Maya find something much more valuable, her own voice. It might be quieter than Rhea's, might express itself differently, but it was strong in its own way, and that was the best revenge of all.